Phil Owen. And I appreciate the fact that he has come to talk about, I need to change this. I hope, whoops. So, Phil's done quite a bit of research, and he's gonna talk to us about this couple. And Major Noble George Washington Winter, hope I've got that right, kept getting names added as he went along, was born in LaMotte. And he was he was a normal baby when he was born, but for complications, he didn't grow. And he was just quite an interesting person. But Barnum and Bailey, Ringling and Barnum and Bailey came to him and made him an offer that he couldn't refuse. And so he traveled with the circus for a very long time, was known as the smallest man in the world. And when he finished his circus career, he came back, not back to Jackson County, but he moved to Monticello, where Phil lives now. And so I understand there was even a Noble family historian, a Winter family historian, in Monticello. So Phil has looked into all that for us so that we can have a better understanding of and fill out our records for historical reasons of just who this man was and some interesting things about him. So I'm really grateful to Phil for coming to do that for us. Phillip Owen.
Well, thank you again. You know, it's so good to come back here.
Why good?
It's such a neat place. You folks are really blessed. You know that?
Sure we are.
You got a crackerjack group of people volunteering for, you got a big organization. It takes people, and you know it takes some money to keep the roof on and pay the bills. So you're very fortunate. As a Jackson County farm kid, I enjoy coming back. I get my brother to come with.
We're always glad when your brother comes with.
Yeah. Get up here.
So please, there you go.
Yeah.
Move it up. Okay. So if you can't hear Phil at any time, wave at him.
Throw something, because my hearing is bad. I don't have any problem. I can hear, but I can't hear you. Yes. When you asked me, or maybe I volunteered, I don't remember.
I asked.
I know the subject kind of hit me like, that's out of my genre a little bit. I mean, I usually talk about things that I personally have experienced. And I thought, well, I know they lived in Monticello. I know their house. So there must be somebody I could find. Well, I'll share with you how that went about. But to keep going here, I got to stick with the script. I've got a unique title today. Birds of feather flock together. Others often seek different feather. And we'll talk about the others that help make a living for the couple we'll be talking about. The others that wanted something different were willing to pay money to view, at the time, what was, well, we'll get into what some of the names and labels that we used to attach to such happenings. I don't have any personal knowledge of the two people. None of you do, because they've been gone a long time. Maybe I should hang on, that way it'll be close.
That'll work.
The spotlight today, as you said, is a Noble Major, or Major Noble, I don't know which you want to go, George Washington Winter. I thought, man, what a name. There must be some story here. And I think there is, that we can talk about. I do remember my wife's family, the older man, recalling there was a midget, no doubt Mr. Winter, who sold popcorn at the Monticello Fair. Now that's been substantiated by a couple other sources. And I personally know the man who said that. I don't know that any of them had seen him personally, maybe they did. But the search on the internet and a book that I have here, the Monticello Centennial, I didn't know when I signed myself up that I could find it. And I went to this book, 1836 to 1896, 1986. Anyway, that's the Centennial, and there's all kinds of it. There's about 2 pages in here about the Winters. So, oh man, it paid dirt. Excuse me. So I'll share some personal memories before I get started on the Winters of another person, a small stature person, like to say. Society today prefers dwarf. Now, to me, we've all heard labels, you know. We had a friend in high school, in Squirt. And there's Pee-wee, and there's Runt, and I guess Runt was maybe the one I'm thinking. We attach those names, I think, lovingly, I hope. My name, among others, was Phillip. I guess, I'm not quite sure why, but anyway, to me, dwarf seems like a Disney label from the past. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Think of some of those names. I mean, they're not very uplifting. Dopey, Snoopy, Sleepy, Grumpy. I think there was a Happy. But the names imply, catch your attention, get your entertainment, have Disney going to capitalize on that. Well, that's kind of what happened. Barnum and Bailey and Ringling Brothers, they capitalized on the fact that Mr. and Mrs. Winter were different. But the American Disability Act suggests that we don't use labels like that anymore. They say we should use, well, they suggested midget. I care neutral or positive. The new idea, for me, is no label, but short stature people. Okay, whatever works. But I met Jimmy Seeley. Did anybody here remember the name Jimmy Seeley? Here in Maquoketa?
I do.
Yeah. I was working for my uncle, a radio TV shop, and I think he called in, or he brought, no, he didn't bring it in. He called in and wanted to know if we could come fix his television. Well, my uncle and I both went out and looked at it, and we decided, yeah, we'd take it in and check the tubes and clean it up. Well, it was small enough, I took it back myself. He lived up here back of, not too far from the old Catholic church along there, somewhere in a little apartment. And he got talking about his life, like a lot of us like to do. And he said he had met, well, first of all, he demonstrated his harmonica. I found a picture of him down in Canton. I think it's probably Canton Homecoming, where he's playing with the band. And he was a pretty good harmonica player. Supposedly, he told me he had met one of the harmonica cats. Ever hear of that group? It was a group of harmonica players. My uncle actually had a record of a stereo. They were pretty good, and he was pretty entertaining. We got his TV back, got it fixed, and I kind of lost track of him. And then several years later, I was in him also, and I went, well, that's Jimmy. He was entertaining, I believe, at some community event, and I talked to him just a minute. But I lost track of him. I imagine he's passed away by now, and I never knew any history of where he came from or his family or anything. And he was in Maquoketa. Excuse me. I'll share some research that the internet that I found on and out of the Centennial book here, Mr. and Mrs. Winter. They earned two pages in this book on Centennial, and their home was built in late 1900s. I think I'm sure it was built before they were married, because it said they came back to a home in Monticello, and I think they were married in 1896, if I remember correctly. And they lived in Monticello in that home while they weren't traveling. It was their come-back-to place between the gigs, as they're known on the road. But they, you know, they were unique. In fact, I got a picture here somewhere. Did I give you that one, or a picture of those, all those other people that, yeah. I mean, I looked up and found, I got to thinking, how am I going to present this? What is there besides just uniquely different? I got to think, well, gosh, if I was this tall, I mean, I would have trouble relating to people. I would treat me like a kid. You know, and that's our nature. We flock to people who are like us. It's easy. If they're a little bit different, skin color, or their language, their nationality, we don't automatically walk up to them and start a conversation. At least I don't. Maybe once or twice, okay? But it isn't an automatic. So these folks had to create, out of a very small group of people, some contacts they could share common interest. But finding a spouse, I mean, think about it. Just mind wanders off in some strange directions. But I had all kinds of choices. I think most everybody in here probably did. But for the most part, a 3-foot person doesn't marry a 6'10" person. I don't believe. A 3-foot person married a 36-inch person married a 35-inch person. And I'll get into how they met. But I looked up and I found about 800 names of other midget show performers. And you remember the phrase freak show? I mean, yeah, that was on the tent in the carnival. That's how they were treated. Now, I guess if they were paying me big money, I could pretend like I was a freak. I imagine, I don't know. But when the day was done, or I had to go back to my regular life, that title, that whole idea would be unique. Well, you can pass that around if you like. But the people that were on display ranged from super tall, super short, you know, all different kinds of flavors, I suppose nationalities. They would cluster together in a circus train, and they travel from city to city, and people would pay money. I think we do that now. It's free. It's called YouTube. Facebook is called ta-da, ta-da, ta-da. We don't pay money. Well, indirectly we are, because we're the product. We're being sold. But that's another story for another time. But I'll get off my subject here. But some people, some of us, crave novelty. Now, I do, I'll be honest. I crave anything that's technically challenging. That's my challenge. Some people shy away from it. I don't have anything to do with it. I don't blame you. There's problems, so too much of one good thing. The haunted houses and horror movies, we go out of our way to find things that are different. We don't go out of our way to find people that are like us. We meet them on the street, we talk to them, we take that for granted. But if we want something different, well, there's a horror movie, I mean, I don't do that much anymore. Anybody enjoy watching a horror movie? Yeah, well, okay. I'll admit, I probably did it one time. But we pay money to find ways to raise our attention, blood pressure, or whatever. The image of the county fair was on display. Now, for the most part, on 99%, I don't like to be on display. This used to be the hardest thing I could have ever done. Farm kid had to get and give a speech in speech class in English. Oh, come on. I mean, I was about falling for it. But the inner self does like to be recognized. We like to be acknowledged. And Mr. Winter, Noble Major George Washington Winter, created his image. And pretty much admitted, I'll get into how that happened, but he was good at that. I want to read a little bit in this book that I found about last minute here. It was a very long name for a very small man, before he was a midget, and this was out of the history book in Monticello. The older people in Monticello, and this was written about 40 years ago, so there were a few older people, by then old would be my age, 85 and older, who might have been a child yet when they were alive, but they certainly remembered hearing about them, as I did, but I just didn't have that immediate connection. They remembered the house, and it was a specially built house. It had 4-inch risers for the steps, and the cabinets were low. The house had a cornerstone. So this man, Noble Major Washington Winter, was a promoter. He self-promoted, and I'll get into a little bit of that, but he wanted a cornerstone in his house, probably the only private home in Monticello with a cornerstone. I know where it is. It's just a few blocks from where I used to live. It's 2 blocks somewhere downtown, which is not big. But it says in here, Noble Winter was a different kind of a man. Well, aren't we all? He was very friendly at times. At other times, he could be very brusque. Well, I think we all have that tendency occasionally. When he spoke, it was usually a quiet voice. But when he was at the fair selling popcorn, he could be loud. And small voice, but loud voice. And his voice could be heard a long ways. It says they loved children, but they could not stand to have any child tease them. Well, who likes to be teased by anybody? 20 seconds would be a lot. And you take it after that would be, oh, okay, this is enough. I don't need any more of this, especially from a child. I mean, here they are. I think I got a picture here. Well, that's the house. I had a picture here somewhere. I guess it's in the book here. I'll let you look later. But it shows Mrs. Winter with two of her nieces, and they're her height. And you got to look at it and think, well, oh, she's not on her knees or anything. So they were different. They liked children. They liked to be teased. He got used to it. He was like, I'm Noble Major Washington. Very seldom, I guess he lost his coolness. That I can imagine would be possible. They traveled for lots of years with the circus, so he got used to it. She never really did. It says she was always sensitive to what was going on. I can understand you'd want your privacy, but if they're paying you to be on display, you have to have two personalities. We all have several, especially if you're getting paid to do something. And I think a customer service nowadays, I'd like to be a customer service representative in some remote location. You're getting calls from all over the world. People, when they call in customer service, they're usually not calling in to thank somebody, I'll clue you. They're a little bit ticked off about something. So it's kind of the same way today as it was back then. They were getting paid to do a job. He learned to cope with it, and she was struggling with it. It says, Noble George Washington Winter called Major in his own publicity material. He published a promotional booklet which contained a lot of information. It looked like it was a third party put together. Well, he actually put it together. He had it published, and that was. It says they were in the 1920s. Yeah, well, they were just kind of retired. The booklet says they were among the world's greatest midgets. Well, that was his self-declaration, I guess. It might not be considered correct today, but a century ago they were given that exact distinction as a subject of the book. The world's greatest midgets, Major N.G.W. Winter and his wife, published about 1904 by Jones Kruger in Winona, Minnesota. And it was self-promotion at the time, kind of as a part of their tour package, I guess. I don't know that those people had agents back then. You know, entertainers now, they have their agent that does all the busy work of keeping the bookings. You have an agent?
Dixie. Dixie's my keeper.
Okay. You should be grooming one if you don't. But they've traveled around, and some context might be noted here. A Winter family member in 2001, not that long ago, noted the booklet they published was telling little of himself and his wife. They did have a career resume to support the claim. And by the time they arrived in Canton, Ohio, Ohio was her home state at least, they'd already traveled the country with circuses, probably a lot of the states. They were with 3 different circuses and a couple of in between, just a temporary tour with a train that was going, kind of like the train from Canadian Pacific Railroad that goes through. That's probably 2-3 months as entertainers sign up. This type of thing like that. They get on a train tour and then they come back to Monticello. It says, then after Winter and his wife, an Ohio native, were married in 1896, they toured together, appearing in stores. One of them was in Canton, Ohio, and again, they billed themselves as the greatest midget. They were touring in the J.H. Pearl Great Railroad Show, and I don't know where that went. they did have the short stature to be little people, as it was outlined in a story published in December 14th, 1919. Shortly after the couple came to Ohio for their week-long stay, they were there for a winter sabbatical. The papers and headlines, little people resting with friends at Marlboro. I thought that was a tobacco place, but it's Marlboro, Ohio. And one headline reported, neither one of the couple is more than 3 feet in height. Another headline made his age 50 in 1919, was exactly 36 inches in weight, says 42 pounds. His wife, 41 in 1919, weighed 40 pounds. She's a little bit shorter, 35 inches. Mr. Winter was born, of course, in LaMotte. That's kind of how the connection. I said, well, Monticello, there can be a lot about Monticello. That's where they live. I couldn't find much that spent much time here in Jackson County. I don't really know just when he wound up in Monticello. It implied, what I found was that he was in Monticello when the circus came through, and that's where he was contacted, and that's where he was recruited to join the circus, in Monticello. I don't know, I couldn't, I just kind of read between the lines. It didn't state that. But he began school at age 9, according to the article, and he did open a confectionery and a tobacco shop at 17 years of age, but I cannot verify he started in Monticello, but I believe he did. He operated a popcorn stand in Main Street, at the fair, and this was on Ancestry.com. And he might have performed in Vaudeville X in New Jersey. Although he ran a tobacco store, he was a strong opponent of tobacco. Okay, and he also aided in the Prohibition movement. His small stature attracted an agent of the Ringling Brothers Circus, and he joined the show in 1890. Get you a timeline here, because at 1920, that's 30 years later, they were in Ohio on their probably retirement tour. But they began exhibiting. That's what they were doing, exhibiting themselves in stores and cities. Nowadays, stores do a number of things to get you in the door and in the mall. Having school kids come and perform and whatever. According to this, the article, according to the couple did not meet until 1896. It was a case of love at first sight. Okay, there weren't many second sight choices for this. Really, stop and think about it. He probably thought, well, what's the deal? I could live the rest of my life alone. I don't know what might have went through his mind. You could make a story. I could write all kinds of stories about what went on in their daily process. But the article noted his wife, Mary Jane Congoware, in Leeton, Ohio, and Columbia County, was a well-known family in Stark County, where she was one time. And the posting at Ancestry.com, made by a woman named Joyce Henry, noted that Mary Jane Winter was her great aunt, and she and my sister, maternal grandmother, were visiting family friends in Mason, Michigan in 1880 when their mother died. So it kind of rambles back and forth here. Sorry, the sequence hard to keep track of. That's where Major Noble George Washington Winter told an audience performance that he was interested in getting married. He put the word out. Well, a lot of people here, I'll just let them know. I guess now, what is it? There's something, a couple places online you can do that. Instead of a handful of people, you can contact thousands of people. Talking about these bachelor farmers up in North Dakota get desperate. They put ad in the paper and they get offers from all over the world. But it says it was love at first sight. Well, by my timeline, it was like 2-3 months they were married. I haven't checked that for sure, but he found his future wife after an audience member told him she knew of a little lady in Mason, Michigan. The couple married February 3rd, 1896, in front of nearly 800 people. I don't know who paid the bill for that thing, but It's kind of implies they did. And I didn't get that for sure, but this was an opera house. The marriage was solemnized with much pomp, said the article. The aisles of the theater, down which the bridal pair walked to a wedding march, was carpeted with cream bunting. Ribbons were stretched on either side. The ring ceremony was performed on stage in order that a large audience might see the wedding. A reception was then held by the newly married couple. Well, that's what it says in this article. You gotta believe that what it says. And after which they left for Monticello, Iowa, where they've since made their home. So in 1896, February, the house apparently had already been built. Don't know that for sure, but it says during the off season or not when traveling with the circus, the couple often made store appearances. Here's a headline: Extraordinary Engagement. An advertisement shouted in the repository and promoted the appearance by the couple the week of January 12th, 1903. This would be several years after they married. The world's smallest midgets, Major N.G.W. Winter and his wife, will be exhibited here. Right up front, will be exhibited here. And you read through it, you will find them very interesting indeed. The ad promised. They talk excellent English. Well, would it be Chinese, or what were they expecting? Like, they're small, maybe just childish. But they talk excellent English. Well, I don't. I know English. During their daily reception here to answer all reasonable questions. Well, he got used to a lot of off-the-wall, kind of spooky. She didn't like that. She wanted some respect. He had it with his name. He said, I'll go home, I'll be myself afterwards, I'll put up with this phrase. But she had their different. So I can imagine later, they talked about that. Can you imagine couples do that? Boy, I was really ticked off with this thing. Oh, that's okay. We made big money. Whatever. I could hear myself talking. Reassured. The winners will be on exhibition on the main floor Monday, the second floor Tuesday, and the basement Wednesday. They had a 3-day engagement. First, upper, and basement. I went up in the basement. No matter what time of day you come, they will be here somewhere to greet you, said the ad. There'll be no charge to see them. Well, we just get you in the store, you'll buy something. So that's the deal. Come back, come and look and talk, and as heart's desire. Bring the children or send them in after school. Get them out of the house. They will surely enjoy it.
Was that in Monticello?
Well, okay, the same size people. The large department stores are now fading away. They tried to attract customers with celebrities. Circus performers attracted almost as much attention as early Hollywood movie stars in early days of silent films. So I remember way back early 60s, we went to Lyndale Mall around the holiday time. Buffy and Jody, I just came back to, if you remember that, Mr.
Yeah.
French?
Yeah.
I don't remember the name, but he was there, spent some time, I don't know the story. I remember we went. Same idea. I don't know what malls are doing now to attract people, but they got their challenges.
So could you tell us where they were, where the department store was with the 3 floors? The ad that.
The what?
The ad that you had with the 3 floors, where was that store?
Ohio, somewhere in Ohio. That was their home state. I expect it was close. In Stark County, that was close to where she was from in that area. So I couldn't tell you more than that. I just read between the lines. Let's see. For a few, oh yeah, so he learned to ignore hard questions, and she was having trouble with it. For a few weeks, 100 years ago while spending the winter in 1920 in Stark County, life seemed simple and wonderful. They were able to kind of feel, I think, a little relaxed, and their tours, and probably the circus is winding down. I'm sure the Winners and a few other dwarfs sought and found soulmates, but they all faced the reality of limited number of soulmate choices. You know, finding someone your own size is one thing, but finding someone today you agree with on anything. You know, we can pick partner at anything, we can find some disagreement. I think it was different back then. Social media didn't stir the pot quite as much, but they passed the world, from this world at an early age by today's measure. Mary died at age 52 in 1921, somewhere, I believe, best you can tell. I don't know where, Joyce Henry said, the posting she made, and find a grave. Major Noble George Washington Winter was despondent. He lost his soulmate. And about 5 years later, he was in San Francisco. The paper says he committed suicide. Now, he drowned in his bathtub. So one would say there probably might have been valid. I don't know, but I don't, you know, they probably put something in there. I don't know the details, but I can just imagine that he lost his soulmate. I had not found either George Noble Washington or his wife listed in any graves around Jones County. You know, I spent probably more of their life in Jones County than anywhere, but you know, from Ohio, they probably had family there. So nobody seems to know where they wound up. From San Francisco, it's a long ways back to Iowa. During the last 10 years of my wife's own life, you go back to my personal story, she accepted the challenge of limited mobility. I was having trouble with it at first, but she didn't want to mess around with a cane. She said, I just need a walker. Well, we went and got a walker, and then we went and got a transport chair. She had some surgery. That had its problems, and I soon suggested, why don't we get a electric chair you can kind of propel yourself. So I was beginning to learn some of the frustrations, I suppose, of coping with differences. And I think the Lord put that in my path to remind me that, you know, get used to the idea, you got to slow down a little bit, I suppose. But I felt a little uneasy when we let her out at the curb, and then I'd park in a handicap place, and I'd walk in unassisted, look like a pretty darn healthy guy, and people that just coming parking, they wouldn't know why I had a handicap parking location. They said, well, how come that guy has got a parking? That's my imagination. Nobody openly confronted me, but that's just a bit of taste of how you can feel when you're just a little bit out of place. So I can see how Mary and a couple had a real challenge, and it was more than just a parking place. About that same time, I heard the following song. Title, that's all I heard. But I cannot recall ever hearing Elvis, I suppose he sang this. It's written by Joe Smith. If everyone could walk a mile in my shoes. So I'm going to switch gears here a little bit and see if we can wrap this up. If I could be you, and you could be me, for just 1 hour, if we could find a way to get inside each other's mind, if you could see you through my eyes instead of your own ego or insecurity, and I believe you would be, this would be the music pause, I don't know how it will go, but I believe you'd be surprised to see that you've been blind. Now, set the music, it might lose some of its impact or it might add to it, I don't know. But walk a mile in my shoes, just a mile in my shoes before you abuse, criticize, accuse, then walk a mile in my shoes. Now, if we spend the day throwing stones at each other, because I don't think or wear my hair the same way you do, there's a lot going around today that makes same-sized people look quite different. Everything from tattoos, nose rings, and you know, you just name it here. Throwing stones at one another because I don't think you wear my hair the same way you do. Well, I may be common people, but I'm your brother. And when you strike out, you're trying to hurt me. It's hurting you. Lord have mercy. Now there are people on reservations. I assume they mean Indian. And believe me, I took a train ride out through half a dozen reservations several years ago. You got to see some poverty if you want to know. There's no evidence they had any bathrooms anywhere running water. And out in the ghetto. And brother, there, but for the grace of God, go you and I. If I only had wings of a little angel, don't you know, I'd fly to the top of a mountain and then I'd cry, cry, cry. Well, now that's kind of a sad way to end, isn't it? But I'll close with this thought. Switch gears. Be kinder than necessary. There are days when I can hardly be kind enough to match the minimum what might be required for the situation. But I do know people who seem to be able to be very positive just about any situation they're given. Be kinder than necessary. We do not know all the sorrows, challenges, and disappointments each person is carrying each day. And that kind of summarizes what I gained from the life of two people that I have never had the chance to meet. So I thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to come down here. And did anyone have any questions on anything particular?
Was Jimmy Seeley a midget? I can't remember.
He was a little bit taller, maybe 4 feet.
I couldn't
He
remember.
played the
You
harmonica.
mentioned him and I thought, oh, I hadn't thought of him in years.
Yeah, I don't really know anything about his family, where he might have lived, or I know he called up and wanted his television fixed, and that was the business that we were in. And later, he was entertaining in Anamosa, as ever lived. And I
What
picture
street
him
is that
entertaining.
house located on?
That's the house there that they lived in. And,
What street?
oh, Grand Street, somewhere around there. It's just a block back of the Presbyterian Church.
Oh,
I've known for years that that's where the midgets lived. But that's all I,
what is happening to the house today?
pardon?
What is happening to the house today?
Well, family owns it. I mean, I don't know. It's not a historical museum or anything. The porch railing was added. I don't know when, but I remember when it was just an open porch. And, you know, until Bonnie challenged me, I said, it could have remained a mystery, but see, now I've filled in the blanks.
That's
And
right.
Thank you.
That's right, thank you.